Hey everybody, welcome to session 5 of our Paraprofessional Academy. We are going to go ahead and get started. I will share my screen with you guys. And today we are going to be talking about courageous conversations and how we can address conflict and communication in our workplace. So disagreeing professionally. The book that I am working off of today is this book, The Paraprofessional's Handbook for Effective Support in Inclusive Classrooms. There's a section about 8 steps, and it discusses how to resolve conflicts professionally. And so that's what we're going to be working from today. Whenever we disagree professionally, one quote that was in the book from a paraprofessional said that the kids aren't the hard part of my job. It's working with other adults that I find most challenging. Sometimes I'm not sure of my role. In some classrooms, I feel like part of the class. In other classrooms, it seems like the teacher doesn't know really what I should be doing. And so I think that I know myself as an educator, I've heard that and I've felt that quite a bit as a co-teacher in classrooms, that sometimes there can be challenges with collaboration. Sometimes communication can break down and we need to refresh that communication with our peers that we work with our colleagues. So I think the bottom line in being able to have courageous conversations or conversations when we are discussing points of contention or points where we don't necessarily agree is to think about the fact that we all want to belong. We all have a need for connection and need to have a sense of belonging. So whenever we are working with others, if we keep that in the forefront of our mind, that that everyone wants to belong, and it's our job to help not just support students and work with each other, but part of our role also is to collaborate and to bridge gaps. And sometimes that can be in the workplace amongst our peers. So we're going to talk about that today and how to address some of those issues. We are going to talk about the definition of conflict. In the Paraprofessional Handbook, let's see, in our Paraprofessional Handbook, they reference the Bonner Foundation. And the Bonner Foundation does a good job of defining conflict. On page 56, they define conflict as a mental or physical disagreement in which people's values or needs are in opposition to each, or they think they are opposed. So looking at this definition of conflict, a mental or physical disagreement in which people's values or needs are opposed. So we have opposing values or opposing needs, or maybe even unmet needs when we talk about conflict. And also, I like that they added they're in opposition to each, or they think they are opposed, which leads us into the idea of perspective. Sometimes we may just have opposing perspectives or differing perspectives. So if we think about conflict, opposing values, we all have values, but they may be on different ends, or what we may find valuable to us may be different for someone else. We all have needs. I think bottom line, when there's conflict, none of those needs are met. And the idea of conflict and perspective taking is important too. So the Bonner Foundation has 8 steps for conflict resolution. When we're in the workplace, and we're going to go through these today. So when you are working with your teachers in your classrooms, the first step in this conflict resolution is to really identify positions of each side for the people that are involved in the conflict. Okay. Being able to understand or to line out what the positions are for the individuals involved is important. So one, ask, what are they trying to communicate? As a paraprofessional, what am I trying to communicate to them? And as a colleague, what are they trying to communicate to me? And in step 1, you're going to write this down. 1, write down your perspective for what your position is on whatever conflict is involved. And number 2, write down the other person's perspective. Okay? Because it's important to be able to identify what those positions are, what those perspectives are. I think communicating and being able to identify perspectives, not necessarily empathize with their perspective, but to be able to write it down and have it laid out is going to be important in resolving conflict. Our next step is to learn about true needs and desires behind each side. So we've got our perspectives written down, yours and the other person's. The next thing that we're going to do is write down your beliefs about what the other person needs. So your beliefs about their needs and their desires. And you're going to write down your own needs and desires. So you're identifying where they stand in step 1, what their perspective is. And in step 2, you're learning about what your true needs and desires are and what their true needs and desires are. And as you can kind of see in these steps, there's a dual part. There's your part and the other person's part. So we're really thinking about the message that's being sent between you and that person and how to communicate that clearly. So we've identified positions. Our next step is to learn about the true needs and desires behind each side. And I think in discussing this or in writing these down, that communication will increase and more clarity will be involved, and that helps in conflicts too. So our step 3 is going to be to ask clarifying questions so that you can get more information. Reframe the problem or whatever that conflict is, the problem that you've identified, reframe it into a question. To resolve conflicts, we need to understand the conflict, but also identify what is involved with that. So asking clarifying questions can help to support a better understanding. So asking the other person, why do you feel the way that you do? And what do you feel you need in this situation? And you can also communicate that to the person that you have the conflict with. So step 3, we're asking clarifying questions because we're really trying to gather as much information as we can to support a resolution, to bring about a resolution. Now, our 4th step in this 8-step process is to brainstorm possible solutions. And there's something called a brain dump, where you write down all the possible solutions. And that's what you're going to do here. All the possible solutions, good solutions, bad solutions. You're going to write these down without judging the quality of the ideas that you're putting down. Write down as many as you can. Okay. So if my problem was that I wanted to teach my child to cross the road safely, one solution would be, one possible solution would be to tell her to do it. Just walk across that street. Now, that's not a great quality solution, but it is one solution, and that's what you're going to do. One solution may be to ignore it or to not talk to each other. Or, to be professional when the kids are in the classroom and ignore each other the rest of the time. Is that a solution? Yes. The best solution? Maybe not. But in step 3, we're just brainstorming all possible solutions. We're not judging. We're just writing down as many ideas as we can. After we've done that, we're going to move on to the discussion. And for each solution, you are going to have a discussion, discuss each solution and how it would affect each side. Okay, so how would this solution affect your side of the conflict? How would this solution affect your colleague's side of the conflict? And figure out possible compromises. Because sometimes every solution is not going to work. Sometimes part of a solution will work. But you're going to talk through each of the potential solutions and discuss what would work and what would not work from your perspective, and then from the other person's perspective also. And sometimes there may not be ideas that work. Sometimes there may be many ideas that work. You may have to generate more ideas if necessary. And that's where building this bridge of communication to resolve these issues is going to be important, because you're working together. And sometimes that solution is going to take work on both of your parts to come up with different ideas. So you've discussed each solution, what would or wouldn't work from both of your perspectives. And hopefully you've got a good list going on. Step 6 is going to be to agree on a solution. Now, I know the idea of agreeing on a solution sounds pretty simple. But whenever you are looking at these solutions, you want to determine which one will work the best for both of you. So there may be some compromise in place here. There may be some ideas that you have to merge together, some solutions that are merged together in this. So the idea of agreeing on a solution that will work best for both conflicting parties is going to be step 6. And what you're going to do in step 6 is you're going to write out a plan. So not just, yes, this is the best solution, but you're going to write it down. And there's power in writing. So there's power in writing out these ideas, discussing these ideas. One, you're going to talk about how will whatever solution be carried out. And the second thing that you're going to discuss is determine how long you plan to implement that solution. And there's, it's important to think about how long. Okay, how long are we going to get how long are we going to work on this solution? How long is it going to run its course before we then need to turn around and evaluate, did this work? Was this successful? Okay, so step 5, you just discussed how each solution would work or not work from both of your perspectives. Step 6, you've agreed on a solution and you've written out a plan. How are we going to implement this solution? And you've given a timeline. How long do we need to implement this solution? Now for step 7, this is where you're going to take that plan from step 6, and you are actually going to work through that plan. You're going to implement that solution. You're going to adhere to the timeline that you and your conflicting partner have laid out in step 6. You're going to give your idea and try it for you're going to give your idea a good try for that determined amount of time. A lot of times we come up with a solution and we say, yes, let's do it. We don't necessarily think about how we're implementing it or how long we're going to implement it. That's what makes step 6 such a great step. And step 7, you're just following through. Now, I think step 8 is the step whenever we're discussing conflict resolution that is powerful. We have to reevaluate our solutions. So you've implemented the solutions. You've done it in the agreed upon time. Now you are going to get back together. That's your first step. Get back together. The two parties are going to get back together and you're going to discuss the solution. What worked? What didn't work? And from that, you're going to repeat this process. Continue this process if necessary. Come up with a list of ideas. Okay, this wasn't working. What are a list of ideas that we can come up with that would make this a better solution? From that, how are we going to implement it? Do we have a timeline? You see where I'm going with this? How these 8 steps are going to, different steps can repeat if you need them to. But being able to reevaluate is important because just like in the classroom, we assess students to know if they have gained the knowledge that we've taught them, and if they're able to use that knowledge to complete whatever task to show that they know that they have that understanding. You have to do the same thing whenever you're working on solving conflicts. You've got to reevaluate, say, is this working for us? Is there something that we could have done better? Okay. And those are our 8 steps. So for our conclusions, what I wanted to do was talk about something that we had discussed earlier. It takes a lot of courage to have courageous conversations. Sometimes whenever we are in disagreement with someone, professionally, whether it be about what my roles and responsibilities are in the classroom, do I have the time that I need to be able to complete whatever work I have ahead of me? Do I feel comfortable with how I'm being treated by others or their view of me, or whatever roles and responsibilities I'm taking on? It takes a lot of courage to have conversations like that. It's easy to push things down. It's easy to go and talk with others who will lend a supportive ear about it. But what takes real courage is to make a plan and have a real discussion with the other person that you are in conflict with. It's possible to disagree respectfully, because I think we all want respect for ourselves, but we also want to be the type of person that gives respect to others, and that at the end of the day is able to go home and feel comfortable with how we have treated others throughout the day and how we have accepted the treatment from others for ourselves. And plan solutions. Conflict is difficult, but if we think about if we have a solution in the forefront of our mind, if we go into any conflict with the idea that I'm going to plan for solutions, then we will lessen those disagreements that we have with others. This is an optional activity for you guys. And it is about going through these 8 steps. Now, typically, if you have conflict, it's going to be with another person. So this activity is going to be just with you, just for you. You don't have to turn it in. This is just an activity for you to practice implementing these 8 steps so that you can have that practice in and be more comfortable with it whenever you actually use it with the colleague that you have conflict with. So first of all, think about a small conflict in your life, just any small conflict. And I'd like for you to take those 8 steps and review them for handling whatever that conflict is. Write down in every step, go through each step and write down your responses and see how that feels. Hopefully that will help you to get into a groove of how to resolve conflicts using these 8 steps. I wanted to give you guys an Amazon link just in case anyone wants to look this book up. I included an Amazon link for it. I use this book quite a bit. So this was our only reference material for this session. And in closing, just like we do every session, I want to talk about our best practices. So number 1, be solution oriented. Okay, that's going to be best practices for a paraprofessional in education. or teachers in education. Another one is to focus on your why. Why are we here? We're here to support the students that need us in order to access whatever education, whatever type of training or support that they need to be able to further their education as students. So our kiddos, that's our why. Focus on your why. And communicate, communicate, communicate. Sometimes that can be really difficult. I know many individuals tend to want to shut down whenever conflict arises, or some individuals want to hit that conflict head on. But making sure that you take time to step back and say, okay, let me make sure that I'm communicating or even over communicating can help to resolve conflicts or head off conflicts before they start. And find time for co-planning. There's something that I like to say, refresh communication often. So many times we have already talked with our co-teachers, our colleagues, about what our roles or responsibilities are for different students, for different class periods. And we do that typically maybe once in the beginning of the year, maybe at the beginning of each semester if you're on semesters. But we don't often go back and refresh those communications. Make sure that you're doing that. Look at those roles and responsibilities that we discussed in our previous sessions, and that hopefully you've worked with the teachers to write those down. Look at that and say, okay, is this still the role that I am, that I've been given? Have my responsibilities or roles changed? And are there different guidelines that I need to look at? Is there different supports that I need, or that my students need, or that my teacher partner needs? Do they still hold true, or do I need to redefine them? And on this closing slide, we have our Session 5 survey. So this is a hyperlink. Please make sure that you are signing in so that I can count you here for attendance. I do let your directors know, your special education district directors know about your attendance. So make sure that you're signing in for each session that you attend. Our next session and our final session is going to be March 6th at 2 p.m. We will be here again, Zooming together. If you cannot attend via Zoom, then just like this session, I will email out to Barrow County this recording and all of the accompanying materials. And of course, in our Google Classroom, we will also have the PowerPoint, the recording, and the sign-in. Thank you guys so much for today. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And I encourage you to use these steps in order to have courageous conversations with your coworkers.